So another classification of government is to act as to its or as to executive leadership. So sino ba yung leader ng bansa na yon? So meron tayong dalawa dito sa classification na to. We have the presidential and the parliamentary form of government or system of government. In presidential form of government, of course, we have the president. In the parliamentary form of government, you have a prime minister. Okay? But ano yung difference nila bukod dun sa kung sino yung leader nila? President, Prime Minister, bukod doon, anong difference nila? Isa sa malaking difference ng presidential at saka parliamentary government is yung powers ng government. In a presidential form of government, ang presidente nila or ang executive branch nila ay hiwalay sa legislative government or legislative branch. While in parliamentary form of government, ang kanilang executive and legislative branches is magkasama. So, paano siya nangyari? In presidential form of government, the president or the executive body is elected separately from the Congress. Okay, kung titingnan natin ng Pilipinas, they are elected separately. Yung mga members ng Senado natin at ng Kongreso or ng buong Kongreso, ng Senado and representative natin, binoboto sila ng tao ng hiwalay. Ganon din sa presidente. So, hiwalay silang binoboto. Unlike in parliamentary governments or parliamentary systems, ang ginagawa po sa kanila, ang binoboto po is yung legislative branch, and the legislative branch, yung mga na binoto po sa legislative branch, sila po ang boboto ng susunod nilang prime minister. So doon natin makikita na in presidential form of government, there is a concept of separation of powers between legislative and executive branches. While in parliamentary systems, the executive and legislative are fused. Kasi yung mismong executive branch ay galing sa legislative branch. Ngayon, nasa na si judiciary branch? Lagi po natin tatandaan na in government systems po, judiciary branch is always independent from other branches of the government. As in, lagi silang nakahiwalay dahil sa judicial independence. And dapat lang silang nakahiwalay in concept. So, these are some of the typologies or classification of governments na nag-exist. So again po, gagawa po ako ng separate videos na magkakaroon ng in-depth discussion per forms of government. So, antay lang po tayo dyan. So, commercial, like and subscribe lang kayo dito. And you'll see, or mapag-uusapan din natin yan in the coming discussions. So, typology of government systems, again, okay? Ano yun naman yung Philippine government? Ano yung ating ginagamit. So ano yung classification of government ng Pilipinas? So fuse natin yung lahat. Depende kasi 'di ba, iba't ibang classification. So pagsamahin natin lahat. So our government, the Philippine government is a republican democracy, unitary, and a presidential form of government. A republican kasi we, the Filipinos, we people of the Philippines, we elect leaders in our government. So sila yung nandun nakaupo, they are the authority because of us. Then, we're a unitary form of government kasi ang ating gobyerno po is a very centralized. Okay, nakabase po sa decisions ng national government or the powers of the government is a very centralized in the national government. And we have a presidential form of government kasi we have a president and we elect leaders in the Congress and the executive branch separately. So, doon natin makikita yung Philippine government natin. Ano yung classification or ano yung ginagamit natin, okay, as a government. So, yan po yung sa atin. We are republican, unitary, and a presidential form of government. So, yan ang sa Pilipinas. So, isang mabilis lang, spectrum of government power according to Michael Roskin. So, marami pong typologies, tama, kung ng government. So, papakita ko lang sa inyo na merong spectrum. Ibig sabihin, hindi absolute. Kumbaga parang hindi absolute ang isang form of government. Dumedepende siya. Okay? Dumedepende siya sa kung paano ito na-employ, paano siya nagagamit, okay, paano yung structure niya, paano yung practice niya. So, in democratic governments, makikita mo na there are democracies, at the same time, limited democracies. Bigyan natin ng example. Let's say, for example, Singapore. Singapore is like a limited democracy. Kasi hindi naman ganun ka tindi, hindi naman ganun ka higpit in Singapore, they have elections, they have everything, malaya naman sila. However, when it comes to freedom of speech, expression, of press, medyo mahigpit. Pero, by their, kung titingnan mo yung way of life nila, they're somewhat like a democracy. But if you look at the structure, it's a very authoritarian by nature. Pero kung titingnan again natin sa spectrum na to, so ayan, so you have democracy, limited democracy, even in non-democratic governments, merong iba-iba pa rin silang spectrum, kumbaga na tinatawag. So merong authoritarian, totalitarian, perfect totalitarian. So pag-uusapan natin yan in the other or in the coming videos. So, ayun lang, para makita nyo lang na may iba't ibang version pa rin yan. So, next, ayan, reminders lang on usage of typology. So, danger of simplifying things. Typologies may disregard nuances between types of governments and political systems. A danger of value bias. Values may hinder us to analyze governments and political systems objectively. So, ayun lang naman. Simplihan lang natin, sobrang daming forms of or typologies of government systems. Hindi siya ganun kasimple. Maraming mga rason or maraming mga kailangan natin i-consider or mga nuances nga na tinatawag para makita natin ano ang isang sistema ng gobyerno. Okay? Hindi siya basta common sense nang nakapag kunyari walang eleksyon, automatic it's dictatorship, or dahil merong hari at reyna, it's already a absolute monarchy. Dumidepende pa rin siya. Ang daming factors na kailangan nating tignan para mas maintindihan natin ano yung type or classification ng government na meron sa atin. So, ayan, pag-uusapan natin, makikita natin yung the other issues in the coming videos. So, ayun lang. So, some fundamental operational principles of Philippine government. So, remember this, according to our Constitution, Section 1, or Article 2, Section 1 of our Constitution, the Philippines is a democratic and a republican state. The sovereignty resides in the people and all government authority emanates from them. Meaning, okay, ang kapangyarihan po ng ating gobyerno is nanggagaling sa tao. Okay? Yung kapangyarihan ng gobyerno po natin or ng bansa natin is nanggagaling sa tao. Okay? Dahil sa eleksyon, nabibigyan ngayon ng kapangyarihan ang ating government officials, the whole government itself, okay, ng legitimacy or ng power because of us, people. So, yung mismong constitution natin, it says that we are democratic and a republican state, wherein all powers resides to the people or emanates from the people. So, ayun lang. So, if you have other questions, comment your questions on the comment section, of course. So, let's talk about separation of powers and checks and balances. Ito yung mga foundational principles na sinusunod ng ating gobyerno. So, ano nga ba ang separation of powers and checks and balances? So, if we talk about separation of powers, so powers are equally distributed among the major branches of the government to prevent the concentration of authority in one person or group. It means that the branches of the government, limitado yung kanilang kapangyarihan. Ibig sabihin, these branches of the government, executive, legislative, and judiciary branch, separated sila sa isa't isa and may kanya-kanya silang kapangyarihan or trabaho. May kanya-kanya silang powers and function, and these powers and functions, hindi siya pwedeng i-exercise ng iba pang branch ng government. Bakit ganito yung nangyari? Bakit meron tayong konsepto ng separation of powers? Ang iniiwasan kasi dito is merong isang branch ng government na magmamalabis dahil meron siyang sobrang kapangyarihan. Okay? Dinesign ng ating mga framers ng ating constitution, yung ating constitution, okay, na magkaroon ng prevention, again, para ma-prevent yung concentration ng power sa iisang institution sa ating gobyerno. Kasi once na maging centralized yan or masyado yung mag-concentrate sa isang body, may tendencies yan na magkaroon ng corruption or grave abuse of discretion. Sabi nga, meron nga akong narinig or nabasa before when I was in college, and lagi tong nauulit sa isip ko, is yung konsepto na absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that is the reason why powers of the government was separated. Okay? And then when we say separated yung powers nila, remember this, the branches of our government is they are co-equal branches. Meaning to say, equal lang silang lahat. Walang mataas, walang mababa. Equal silang lahat. And they are separated para maiwasan yung concentration of authority or powers. So, ayun. Next. So, ayan, assignment of our power under the separation of powers. So, again, uulitin lang natin yung kanina. Ang legislative branch, they are tasked to create laws. Ang executive branch, they are tasked to enforce laws. Judicial branch, tasked to interpret the laws. Meaning, silang tatlo, may kanya-kanya silang trabaho, may kanya-kanya silang kapangyarihan at hindi sila pwedeng i-overreach or hindi sila pwedeng pakilaman or hindi pwedeng yung isang branch ng government gagawin yung trabaho ng isa dahil may kanya-kanya silang trabaho. Okay? So, si legislative branch, hindi siya pwede mag-enforce ng laws, hindi siya pwede mag-interpret ng laws dahil ang trabaho niya is to create laws. And sa executive branch, hindi siya pwedeng gumawa ng sarili niyang batas. Although, meron tayong topic na the president can create executive orders. Pero different siya from laws created by the Congress. And, ayun na nga, ang executive branch, hindi siya pwedeng gumawa ng batas or hindi niya pwedeng exercise yung trabaho ng legislative branch at hindi niya pwedeng exercise yung trabaho ng judiciary branch. Kasi nga, again, magkakahiwa-hiwalay sila dahil meron silang sariling mga trabaho. And pag-uusapan natin yan in the coming videos.